Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So I was going to put this on the end of the Gaza one originally, but then what happened afterwards I thought needed its own one. So it starts off with them talking about the humanitarian aid and about a bus attack, if I remember rightly, unless that was the one before, but I think it was in this one. I only listened to it this morning, I've already forgotten. So it's about, I don't know, I'm not laughing at that, I'm just laughing at my forgetting things. So the IDF were claiming that Hamas had attacked a bus of Palestinians that were helping out with the humanitarian aid. It does seem strange, but I guess not the what they're saying. The thing I think is strange is that when you're giving humanitarian aid to a country, that you're using the people that need it to administer it. But I guess that's to do with, obviously all the people inside there are Palestinians, so you're going to need some of them to assist you, unless you bring your own people. I don't know what in the rule of law it says about, because I know like the ruling party has to give aid, but I don't know if they have to actually distribute it physically themselves. Should it only be Israeli people that are giving out the aid and doing all the trucks and doing all that stuff? But I know the UN, they use Palestinian people. And of course to their detriment, because that was, they had a few of them that were to do with the planning of October the 7th, allegedly, according to Israel. And I know the UN did get rid of a load of people, so I assume there was some fact to that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that. So, but what it shows to me, and what a lot of people have said, is that yes, we all know that Hamas is a terrorist organisation, and we know that terrorist organisations don't really care too much about the sanctity of life. When a terrorist, they're not like a soldier in the sense that, and I'm not trying to equate, and I'm not trying to defend. Anyone that kills people, in my eyes, I have a problem with that. But I know we live in the system that we live in, where these things are acknowledged. But in the sense of a terrorist, they will have a bomb, and they were going amongst a load of old people and blow it up, and they don't know the people that they're going to kill. They're just ordinary people. They're not like, they don't just go to soldiers or whatever, because they can't get close to them. That's why terrorists do the things they do, unfortunately. But they don't discriminate, and the problem is we know that Hamas is a terrorist organisation, because most of the world says that, including the UK. And the way they act shows that. And so it's not surprising that they are shooting the people that they claim that they are fighting for. Like most of these people who are in charge or want to be in charge, it's all about power and greed. And it's very little about people, unfortunately. And so I'm talking about governments there when I'm saying unfortunately. But yeah, they will. So we know that. So they're a terrorist organisation, and they're killing their own people. And then probably, with the humanitarian aid, they don't want it to work, because it is Israel that are involved in it. And maybe even the UN ones, they would like to disrupt them, because they want that story. Because when journalists report it, they tend to, make very little of the fact that, if the same thing happened, if you had a food bank and, it was cordoned off, and you had armed guards for some reason, and some people are walking towards the armed guards, and they're not meant to. They're meant to be going in to get food. Why they're walking, or they're going to a different secret area, or whatever. I know, there's a bit about whose land it is, but in the sense of common sense, and then they are then told, stop, and they refuse to, and they're coming towards you still, and you think that well, if they may be terrorists, they may have a bomb, or they may want to kill me. I then have to act. And I'm not trying to defend any of this stuff, but what I'm saying is that, that would be, people will see that as reasonable, that you've been told to stop, you haven't stopped, and you're still coming towards me. Assuming this is all factually accurate, what we've been told. But when the journalists, report it, they are sort of saying, they're missing that bit out, and saying that, a humanitarian aid thing, the IDF start shooting people. which seems very sort of like trying to create a narrative. And I have sort of started to notice this recently. And though, it may well be true that maybe, but if the people they were shooting at were Hamas terrorists and they were trying to disrupt things and they weren't doing what they were meant to be doing, or they were people that wanted to attack the people who are giving out the food, then obviously they have to defend themselves. If they started shooting within the middle of where everyone's getting their food, or, then that's a different story. But that's the way it's broadcast. So that's why I wanted to put this bit. And then afterwards, it was like Donald Trump talking about removing his people from Iraq, and they were asking him about Iran, and him saying about them not getting a nuclear weapon because the talks have broken down. And then the very next day, America's friendly country, Israel, who they always back historically, launched an attack on Iran, on their nuclear sites, military, this, that, and the other. America have come down hard upon them. Iran saying, don't do any more. Obviously, I think it's Rubio has said that, America had nothing to do with this, although they did get cameras to watch it, apparently, and they did get notice, which is probably why they removed people of Iraq, because, obviously, America probably, if they were involved, aren't going to offer that, yeah, we're involved. It's like the same thing as like when they're interviewing, this bit where it was interesting to hear the Israeli side of it, why they did it, because of the danger, because we know that Iran, or certain members of the Iranian government, have talked about the genocide, the removal of all Israelis, which of course is wrong and against international law. That, obviously them getting a nuclear bomb could be very problematic. So you get the argument of why they may do it. It just sort of is strange that the way that certain countries are able to just bomb sovereign countries without needing to go through the UN or any agreement or anything like that. But maybe that's just a face value exercise that the West used to do. When I'm thinking of Iraq and Afghanistan, how long it took, how many UN battles, and to go and get regulation to go and do things. But maybe that's a perception thing. But it was interesting to hear his argument. To see like, oh, okay, they're trying to protect themselves and etc. The only problem, it could escalate it, because obviously if you're going to drop bombs on and stop them having things, then they may think, well, now I need it because I can't defend myself, because they can just blow me up and I can't blow them up because they've got America's backing and they've got this big dome that stops everything. And so we're going to need a nuclear weapon because that's an ultimate deterrent. And it always is, it reminds me, it's a bit rich, America sort of saying about no one else can have a nuclear bomb when they're the only ones who've actually used one. And policing the world as if, they're somehow God, that they have that God-given right to say who can have and what, and, whatever. But I get, if they're defending, I don't want anyone to have a nuclear bomb. I wish we didn't have guns and all these things. But yeah, I get why, in the end, it may be better to get rid of all these things and stop it, because who knows, who's in charge and what could happen. But I feel just as worried about Iran having a nuclear bomb as I do Donald Trump, because he's erratic, that he's the type of president, I haven't been worried about other presidents pressing the button, but I definitely could see him doing it. So, I'd rather there was no nuclear bombs. But this story is obviously going to continue, and I'll probably have a few more clips at the end. Take care, take it easy, God bless and peace.
The US and Israeli-backed aid distributor in Gaza has accused Hamas of a deadly attack on a bus carrying Palestinians working with the organisation, killing at least 5 aid workers, while the group denies allegations of violence at its sites. Our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle joins us from Jerusalem. What can you tell us, Alistair? Morning.
Well, this incident is supposed to have happened when some of the local Palestinians who are working for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation were on a bus being taken back to where they are currently living, away from the aid distribution site. And according to reports, this bus was ambushed by members of Hamas, who killed 5 of those Palestinian workers, and possibly, no confirmation of this, kidnapped some others. Now, we haven't heard any further verification of what happened. We haven't been given the names, for example, of those who've apparently been killed, but it seems to be yet another incident surrounding this very controversial method of delivering aid. What we have seen almost daily is people being injured and killed as they've made their way to these aid distribution centres. Often it's been, and the IDF have admitted that at times they have opened fire on what they describe as suspects approaching Israeli military positions close by. And so it remains a chaotic situation and a very dangerous and deadly situation as well.
Okay, Alistair, thank you. The US has ordered the partial evacuation of its Iraqi embassy and the departure of people who are non-essential to its operations elsewhere in the Middle East. The decisions come as nuclear talks between the US and Iran, which has significant influence in the region, appear to have reached a deadlock.
They are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
And then after that comes this.
Hello, very good morning. You're watching Sky News. It's 7 o'clock. Israel launches airstrikes on Iran against military and nuclear targets.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
Iran's supreme leader says Israel has brought a painful fate upon itself, vowing severe punishment for the attack.
Good morning from Jerusalem, where Israelis were woken around 3 a.m. to air raid sirens and alerts on their phone. Millions have spent the night in bunkers and safe rooms, awaiting the Iranian response.
And here, Keir Starmer urges restraint and return to diplomacy, saying escalation serves no one in the region. Hello, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. Our breaking news this morning: Israel has launched what it calls a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and other military targets. Benjamin Netanyahu promised the mission, dubbed Operation Rising Lion, would continue for as many days as it takes, saying Iran's nuclear program poses a threat to Israel's very survival. Well, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, vowed a harsh punishment in retaliation for the attack, saying Israel has brought a bitter and painful fate upon itself, and it will certainly face it. Well, the strikes, including on the capital Tehran, have killed the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Major General Hossein Salami, according to Iranian state media. Israel's military says 200 fighter jets completed strikes on more than 100 targets, including nuclear facilities in different areas of Iran. Israel's military claims Iran is advancing a secret program to build nuclear weapons and says Tehran has the capacity to make a nuclear bomb within days. Well, Iran's supreme leader says residential areas in Tehran have been hit, while the International Atomic Watchdog has confirmed the Natanz nuclear site was also targeted in the attacks, and Iranian media is reporting 2 of Iran's top nuclear scientists were killed. Well, this is where strikes have been reported so far. In the capital, Tehran, where Iranian state media is reporting residential areas have been hit and civilian casualties have been reported. Khorramabad in western Iran, which is home to a large missile base, and Iran's main uranium enrichment facility at Natanz, where the International Atomic Agency is now closely monitoring radiation levels. The Israeli military has confirmed Iran has launched more than 100 drones towards Israel in the past few hours. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it launched the strike because Iran's nuclear program poses a threat to the country's very survival.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
Well, let's cross live to Jerusalem and talk to our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle. So, Alistair, Benjamin Netanyahu has called this a decisive moment in Israel's history. Just how significant would you say these strikes are?
I think they're very, very significant. It is a completely different tone to what has happened before in April and in October of last year, when Israel again struck Iran and Iran hit back. This time is different. This time it's not a one and done. This time I don't think there is going to be, despite the efforts of Sir Keir Starmer and others, I don't think there's going to be a successful attempt to try and calm things, at least for a couple of days. I think Israel is planning to carry out more waves of strikes across Iran, and really the gloves are off. They have struck not just nuclear facilities in Iran, they have struck at major military sites as well, the ballistic missile program. And I think in some respects, the most significant element is the fact they've taken out senior figures within the Iranian regime, military commanders, the commander of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, the head of Iran's emergency unit, the head of Iran's military, and possibly, we understand, other senior figures as yet unnamed. These are people who are very close to the supreme leader. These are key figures within Iran, and whether or not Israel sees it this way, for Iran, what has happened over the last couple of hours is an act of war.
And what kind of response might we see from Iran?
Well, I think we are seeing the first element of it. 100 drones have been launched. Some pictures showing them flying over Iraq on their way to Israel. The Israeli military will try and engage them and bring them down before they reach Israeli airspace. You know, as a response, that's not particularly significant. I would expect that most of them will be eliminated. I think the question, though, is whether or not this is a multi-layered response. Go back to April of last year, Iran launched drones and they take a number of hours to get here, but then they launched cruise missiles and then they launched ballistic missiles in waves, all to arrive roughly at the same time in an attempt to try and overwhelm Israel's defences. Now, Israel's defences are very, very good indeed. This obviously has not come out of the blue for them. They've been preparing for this and they'll have made sure their defences are in the best shape possible. But April of 2024, there was a coalition. There was warning. I've spoken to foreign ministers around the region subsequent to that, and they said, yeah, we knew this was happening about 3 or 4 days beforehand. So you had a coalition primarily of Israel, America, with support from Britain and France, helping shoot down those drones, but also you had a sort of an informal coalition as well of Arab states allowing Israel to use their airspace or giving them forewarning of stuff passing through their airspace. I think it's probably too soon. If a coalition of that kind is going to be formed, I think it's probably too soon. So we'll wait and see. You know, I'm not exactly sure when they're going to arrive here, maybe the next hour or two, and we'll see whether or not that's it for now, or whether or not it's followed up with a more powerful response. Because I think there is, this morning, a question mark over what damage Israel has managed to do, in particular to Iran's ballistic missile array, and whether or not they have damaged Iran sufficiently enough to really quite significantly limit any response Iran wants to carry out.
The US has been seeking to distance itself from these strikes. They say they weren't involved in them. What do you know about the US view on Israel's move?
I think when all is said and done and when the dust settles, America and the entire world will be thankful that Israel took upon itself to neutralize and remove the nuclear menace of Iran. Right now, we're in the midst of the operations. It's always tough. It's always messy. I'll remind you that in 1981, we took out the nuclear facility of Iraq, of Saddam Hussein. We were condemned by the whole world, later on thanked by the whole world. Likewise, in 2007, when we took out Syria's nuclear program. So, we're doing what we have to do, and this is going to make the world a safer place and save millions of lives.
Do you know, though, if President Trump tried to dissuade Benjamin Netanyahu from carrying out this strike?
I don't know.
How important do you think US support is?
I think US support is very important, and I would want to think that the US has our back. I believe that President Trump articulated quite clearly that he would not let Iran acquire nuclear weapons, and right now we're executing on that strategy.
These strikes, of course, have prompted reaction around the world. Here in the UK, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is calling for de-escalation and restraint. It's a similar message from the Secretary-General of NATO, Mark Rutte, who said it's crucial to de-escalate tensions in the region. Will Israel be listening to the likes of Keir Starmer and Mark Rutte?
If you're in a boxing match and you take another hit and another hit, what Israel has been doing for 30 years and more so for the past 2 years, and you're being punched again and again, and finally you punch back and you're about to knock out the opponent, and then you're told to de-escalate. We will de-escalate once the menace is gone. Once the threat is gone, that'll be a wonderful time to de-escalate.
What do you expect now from Iran in terms of scale of response, and how long do you think this will go on?
Well, we do take into account that Iran has a formidable ability to respond. We are preparing for that. We've intercepted dozens of drones and UAVs that were hurled towards us over the past couple of hours. But this was expected, and we're on top of things. It's going to be a tough few days, and I'm sure the Israeli public is strong enough to go through this. And I think the world should appreciate someone who's willing to take action to remove a global menace. No one did this to stop North Korea from acquiring nuclear weapons, and now they have nuclear weapons, and it's a mess. We are acting. We did prevent Iraq. We did prevent Syria, and now we're hopefully preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. There's no nice way to do it. There's no pretty way to do it. You've got to do what you got to do. I'm proud to be Israeli. I'm proud we're acting.
Naftali Bennett, a former Prime Minister of Israel, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's bring Deborah back in, who was listening there. What do you make of what former Israeli Prime Minister said there?
Yes, well, he's very much supporting the Israeli government line and the justification that it's not something that's just happened overnight, that Israel has wanted to attack Iran and to degrade Iran's nuclear capabilities. This has been the priority of the Israeli government ever since it emerged that Iran was working towards developing the bomb. Why? Because Iran has made no secret that Israel is its prime enemy, and it wants to destroy. It said it wants to destroy the state of Israel, and so for Israel, it views any sense that Iranian nuclear capabilities could be approaching the level of making a bomb as an existential threat. Iran has repeatedly denied that its program is anything other than civil nuclear program. Clearly, Israel does not believe that. The UK also has been very worried about Iran's nuclear capabilities. It's why the UK was part of that massive international push to reach a deal with Iran to contain its nuclear ambitions that was then derailed by Donald Trump in his first term as president. And so since then, And since Iran has continued to enhance its capabilities and get closer and closer to this sort of breakout moment when making a nuclear bomb becomes inevitable, the Israelis have been watching and waiting and biding their time, and they've clearly decided that this is the moment to strike, even though it comes. You asked about whether Donald Trump had tried to dissuade Benjamin Netanyahu not to do it, because he's obviously trying to come up with some kind of deal with Iran. The Israelis have clearly weighed up the risks. They know that this moment is a moment of weakness for Iran, having lost a lot of the support that it had from Hezbollah, given Israeli operations into Lebanon, and also Israel's campaigns into Iran over the last year, taking out air defense systems and other more covert operations. They clearly felt that the risk was worth taking to hit now, even if maybe America had asked them to wait a bit longer to let diplomacy work. And they will be banking on the hope that even if America hadn't fully backed the idea of launching this strike now, ultimately America will get behind Israel and support it in whatever comes next. And clearly Iran is going to retaliate.
Indeed, there are lots of steps yet to go through, aren't there? And lots of questions unanswered. Deborah, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. So if you'll just join us, let's just recap our top story for you this morning. And Israel has launched what it calls a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and other military targets. Benjamin Netanyahu promised the mission, dubbed Operation Rising Lion, would continue for as many days as it takes, saying Iran's nuclear program poses a threat to Israel's very survival. Well, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, vowed a harsh punishment in retaliation for the attack, saying Israel has brought a bitter and painful fate upon itself, and it will certainly face it. Well, the strikes, including on the capital Tehran, have killed the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Major General Hossein Salami, according to Iranian state media. Well, Israel's military says 200 fighter jets completed strikes on more than 100 targets, including nuclear facilities in different areas of Iran. Israel's military claims Iran is advancing a secret program to build nuclear weapons and says Tehran has the capacity to make a nuclear bomb within days. Iran's supreme leader says residential areas in Tehran have been hit, while the international atomic watchdog has confirmed the Natanz nuclear site was also targeted in the attacks, while Iranian media is reporting 2 of Iran's top nuclear scientists were killed. So this is where strikes have been reported so far. In the capital, Tehran, where Iranian state media is reporting residential areas have been hit and civilian casualties have been reported. Khorramabad in western Iran, which is home to a large missile base, and Iran's main uranium enrichment facility at Natanz, where the International Atomic Energy Agency is now closely monitoring radiation levels.
There's no radiation.
And the Israeli military has confirmed that Iran has launched more than 100 drones towards Israel, with its spokesperson saying the country is in for a rough few hours. Well, earlier we heard from Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He explained which sites Israel had targeted.
We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too
Do we have any
must be
evidence of this?
stopped.
This is very similar to Bush and Blair's.
Well, our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle has the latest now from Jerusalem.
Weapons of mass destruction.
They're targeting not just Iran's nuclear sites, but also their ballistic missile program, and as we know now, key leaders in the Iranian regime, the head, the commander of the Revolutionary Guard, the senior political advisor to the supreme leader, and potentially others. Multiple waves of Israeli strikes over the last few hours, more than 200 Israeli aircraft involved in the operation, we're told. They've struck more than 100 sites in and around Iran, the length and the breadth of the country. This is designed to, if not totally eliminate Iran's nuclear capabilities, at least to severely degrade it and push it back many, many years. But it is more than that. It is striking at Iran's wider military capabilities, its ability to be able to respond to Israel. And interestingly, in the last few minutes, we've heard that Iran has launched around 100 drones at Israel. Israel's working to shoot them down now. That would be Iran's first response, first retaliation as we know it. And it's not in the form of ballistic missiles, it's in the form of drones that can be lethal, but obviously travel much more slowly than ballistic missiles and don't carry the same payload as ballistic missiles.
Do they have a threat?
Maybe that
Netanyahu said that they could
points
take out
to
the whole of
the
Israel,
damage that
invade it,
Israel has
take it
managed
over?
to inflict
Or is it
on
because Israel
Iran's
has
ability to respond to this. We know that in addition to the Israeli Air Force operating overnight, many reports around in Israeli media that the Mossad, Israel's famous intelligence agency that has had success in Iran before, they have also been working to eliminate ballistic missile sites and parts of Iran's nuclear capability. So a huge, wide-ranging attack on Iran, and just the beginning. We expect this to last many days. This is not a one and done, but it does look as though Israel is trying to make it once and for all.